live. And I posted it wrong. So, everybody, good morning. It is Saturday. Has been a chaotic day already, and for no good reason. I hope everybody's had a good weekend. And I can't type this morning. That's all right. It is a overcast but not too hot Saturday, as I'm giving a weather update because that's why people are here to hear about the weather and my chaotic morning. While we're waiting on people to pop in, just so you know, yesterday was my oldest birthday. I made a cake. It exploded. It's all good. So somebody's got to clean my kitchen. Disaster. Because I'm a normal person. I am not a robot. I'm a regular person. And there's a few things you can be guaranteed. One, I'll do everything I can to help you if you're a good person. I will fidget and I will always be late. So, with that being said, hello. Welcome to Community Updates. It is Saturday, July 8th. I shouldn't have had to check my watch on that one. And we're going to talk about the water. I'm Melissa Mays. I am the founder of What Are You Fighting For, established in January of 2015 due to the emerging at that time Flint water crisis that is ongoing. And I'm also operations manager at Flint Rising, and I'm also a social worker in mental health here in Flint. So, got a lot of things that I can share, and we want to hear from you guys. I'm here with Mickey, and I just want to say thanks to the A10 News Group because it's awesome to see news for Flint about Flint by Flint. So there's a lot of things that we can hear and see, and we hear outside. I don't know if everybody else has the same kind of issues. You see the outside media, and they get bits and pieces. Some are great, but usually it's independent media, and they can't focus on us all the time because there's so many things going on in the world. So it is so important, and it is so helpful to have a consistent, ongoing, local community news outlet that can share tips because it can tend to feel like we're alone and overwhelmed. And I do help other communities, like we're working with East Palestine. Nayyirah Sharif was just down in Jackson, Mississippi. So we do help, but we are also still focused on keeping our community together and to be a good example because the Flint water crisis, with all of the awful things that's happened for the past 3,361 days, we've shown how strong and resilient a community can be, a poison community, a community that was checked as disposable, as a lot of poor minority communities are, but we're not. And again, I'll always quote Claire McClinton by saying they poisoned the wrong city because we fought back, and we fought back hard because of our organizing history and just the strength of every single resident here who's fought back. And even just getting up and surviving and going about your day is a way to push back. So you don't always have to be out there, yelling, screaming, going to court and all these things. But we do have an amazing amount of people that are doing those things. So it's nice to hear updates from the people that are, in the fight firsthand. And it's good to talk and come up with ideas so we can work together to see how we're going to find our recovery. Because unfortunately, the powers that be, the city, state, and federal government, don't seem to be in any kind of a hurry to get us the recovery that we deserve. So, that being said, if you have questions, if you have Mickey, who's amazing and who puts up with my chaos and everything, will be reading them to me. But we're going to talk about, water, because that's the one thing. I before all this, I was metal music promoter and manager, and I like heavy metal in my music and not my water. Ha ha. So a lot of little jokes there, but that was my expertise before, and now it's water quality, water safety, water testing, and so that's why I'm here. So if you have questions and share information, if you guys have safety information for one another, please share. If you have ideas, ways to work around it, even going back to like how do we stop my pets are on filtered water, and we noticed that they're shedding extra. There's people that ask me questions about that. Rashes are still a big thing. I'm broken out on my face today because I used my tap water in a hurry to wash my face. So there's things like that. So if we can share tips, because we are a community, and if we can share things to help one another stay safe and be able to survive in the strongest, safest way possible, that's why I'm here. So I'm also here to give my opinion. Just FYI, I think PSA, um, unless it is specific and information I'm reading from, most of this is my opinion. So my opinion, my experience, and all that. Which, by the way, all of us have our own expertise. We have the lived experience that some of these outside folks don't have. Somebody had sent me a clipping of a paper that was submitted about how uh, community members who are fighting for social justice are harming themselves by doing so, and by questioning authority, by questioning experts. So I got a good chuckle out of that. Basically, it's another way to say, hey, poison folk, uh, by asking people to stop poisoning you, you're harming yourselves. It's a interesting world we live in nowadays, but we just have to brush that off and laugh. People are still trying to profit off of the Flint water crisis, and still trying to tell us that we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what we're talking about. How could we, But then you go toe to toe with some of these experts, and yeah, we know how to survive. We know what to do. And we've learned that we need to rely on each other. So, that long intro being said, thank you for spending your Saturday late morning with me. I appreciate every single one of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here every Saturday. And yeah, so we're going to go over some of the information. So, there's no new updates. So, amongst all the things that I do, I am also one of the lead plaintiffs in the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act case, which is the pipe removal and property restoration case. So, that is filed in federal court. We did go back to court last Friday. There are no new updates. The attorneys are filing their summary brief over, including the new evidence and everything. That's due on the 14th, and then the city has a week to reply. So there's not a whole lot of information with that right now. But what I do want to read is like a list, just basically a PSA that the NRDC, so our attorneys are the Natural Resources Defense Council and the ACLU of Michigan. And they've been with us, fighting with us since 2015. And they're amazing people that are doing incredible things for us. So just to kind of go over a few things so and also we've passed out, and I can send you and I can post another Know Your Rights, which I don't know if you cannot see this, but it's Know Your Rights under the Flint Safe Drinking Water Act settlement agreement. Because that's the biggest thing is it seems that the people who are responsible are able to cut corners and skip things and just plain not do their jobs, what's required of them, because they don't put out the information that we need to know to hold them accountable, of course. So that's what we got to try to do for each other, is to provide information so we know how to fight back. So during this time, we're going to go over a lot of phone numbers, email addresses, and websites. And again, like last week, I will put them in the comments. I'm going to try to do it as we're going, but typo fingers here maybe might wait till we're until we're done. So yeah, we're going to try to stay on track. But if you have questions, please post them so we can go along. And but in the meantime, yes. So the lead service line, if you have a lead or galvanized steel service line, it is required by federal court that the city replace that with a copper line at no cost to you. They are required to do the city side and then also your side, which means they're going to dig up by the curb box, which is usually sometimes it's in your driveway, sometimes it's in different parts of your yard, but it's usually in the grassy part, the easement, whatever you want to call it, between the sidewalk and the street. So they're going to dig that up, and then they're going to inspect. Now, they should also come into your basement or go around where your water meter is. And this is why it's important that you sign the consent form to let them in, because there were a lot of partial service line replacements through the years, meaning the city side may have been replaced and may not have been lead. But if there was a line rupture or something was replaced, your service line or part of it could have been replaced with lead. And the reason you want the lead and the galvanized steel out is once it's connected to a new copper line, that creates an electrical charge, which makes copper and lead corrosion worse. So you do not want, and we actually worked to ban partial service line replacements because it was a way for governments to save money, but then to additionally poison folk. And that, Not okay. So yes, you do want to let them into your basement to see what, the material that's connected. So that way they can get an idea of the entire service line. So they'll dig that up, and then they should let you know what your material is. If it is lead or galvanized steel, they are to replace it and then flush your line. And then also make sure you've got filters and you know how to install them. They're properly installed, but they need to flush your line to get everything out. You need to have your water on to have this done, not for restoration, but for the pipe replacement. So as long as you had an active water account by March 28th of 2017, you would be fine, but it needs to be on at the time of service. So I know people have their water shut off because it's bad or for whatever reason, but also affordability, which is another bunch of information we need to talk about as well to make sure you have your, we're fighting to keep the poison flowing, but to keep the water flowing because that's what's best at this time. So so you want to make sure they do that. So they're going to dig at the curb box, and then if they need to replace it, they'll talk to you about what needs to be done, but get it replaced. We have a lot of people, not as many as the city said though. We were told hundreds of people that declined. It's not that many. There are people that don't want it done because some people were growing, medicinal marijuana in their basement. Well, nobody cares. That doesn't matter. Some people were worried about the damage to the property and the yards and the restoration. Now, that is a whole other issue that we're in court fighting, but the city is required to restore, which means fix the yard, your driveway, the street in front of your house, the sidewalks, anything that was torn up by the process of getting your line out. The city is required to replace that. So, and the thing is that's why we're going back and forth to court, because the city actually doesn't know how many homes need to be restored or replaced. But we'll wait to see what the judge says on that. But it's important, so everybody get a pen or just type in that you have these phone numbers, and that you go onto the city's website or you email them and tell them you are giving consent, or you already have given consent to have them come out and inspect your line and to replace it if needed. Now, that email address is gettheleadout@cityofflint.com, or you can call, and this number is through Rowe in the city of Flint, Rowe Engineering, which is the project manager for this last, hopefully, final leg of this ongoing saga here, which was supposed to be finished in 2020. But the phone number is 810-410-1133. 810-410-1133, or get the lead out at cityofflint.com. This is also the email address and also the phone number that you will call if your property has not been restored yet. Or if you got a door hanger like I did that said, hey, your property looks great, but you still have a big pit in your yard and that your water shutoff is sticking up, which should not be. It was not restored. So I called and emailed and said, hey, I don't know who decided that this was finished, but it's not. It is not. And you have that right. So we want to make sure everybody knows that. Now, if you send an email off to the city of Flint at the gettheleadout@cityofflint.com, I recommend that you also copy that email to the Natural Resources Defense Council, or NRDC, at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. So that way they can see and you can have a backup that, yes, you did email this. And if you are making a phone call, see if you can record when you make the phone call, but at least write down the date and time and who you spoke to, if anyone, or if you left a message. Keep track of all this. And yes, it is putting extra work on us, but we need to make sure it's done. And don't forget that Flint has public health navigators that if you call, they are able to deliver filter cartridges and cartridge replacements, filter replacements, the zero water pitchers, as well as water test kits. This is important. You get 2 free, due to the lawsuit, you are 2 free water test kits for copper and lead. And yes, there's more in our water, but that's under the Safe Drinking Water Act. It covers copper and lead because it's severely outdated. Different issue. So you're required to get that for free. If you do not have transportation and cannot get down to City Hall between the hours of 9 and 4 to pick it up, you can call and have the public health navigators deliver it. So that number is 810-410-2020. 810-410-2020. So that is, they are delivered, deliveries are provided by the City of Flint Public Health Navigators, also for free. And if you do if you do your water test, and if you have questions also, we can talk about how to properly do a water test as well. If you have questions, that's something we can talk about. But make sure you get it done. And 2 every 6 months. Get it done once per season, because whenever the weather changes, like it's super hot right now, and back and forth, and if there's construction or even if a heavy truck drives over, it can shake up contaminants. So it's best to continually, if you use filtered water, clean your aerators, clean your filters, change your cartridges before the light goes red. So don't wait until that time. And then a lot of times just do it to be on the safe side if you're using filters. So there's that bunch of information. Now, the reason you want to make sure you're getting your water tested and get that, those lead lines out is, I don't know if you can see this. If people, you're supposed to get this City of Flint annual water quality report. It's a fold over, looks like this, and you're required to get it every year by law. Now, it is a year behind, but here's some interesting things that I would like to point out why it's important. While I was in court on Friday, I got this, so I was reading this while we were in court because I have a boring life. But anyway, this is important to read this, and yes, it's important to read what's in it, but also what's not in it. This is something when I do work with other communities outside of Flint, when they, especially folks on social media who want to get sassy and say, well, our water is clear, so it's just fine. Some of the most dangerous contaminants, like lead, and some of the disinfection byproducts, and even bacteria, many do not have any color, taste, or odor. So, just because you have clear water doesn't mean it's all okay. You should always get your water tested. I would prefer we have independent testing in here, but we're under the state's thumb still. And when the people who are responsible for a disaster, like the Flint water disaster, when they're in charge of the recovery, that's why we don't get one. And we have to fight every single piece of it. Now, when you open it up, it talks about water source and general information. I just want to point out under general information, it says information for people with special health concerns. Okay. Some people may be more vulnerable to contaminants in drinking water. First of all, everybody, there should not be contaminants in your drinking water. If your infrastructure is replaced, which ours is not, and again, the lead and galvanized steel service lines are only one piece of our water infrastructure. We got to deal with the damaged mains, which you've all seen rupturing and creating sinkholes and everything. We have the damaged mains that come from the water treatment plant that connect to the service lines that connect to the houses, but then also the interior plumbing, appliances, and fixtures were all corroded by this improperly treated water that was more corrosive from the get. So some people may be more vulnerable to contaminants in drinking water, and that's just an awful statement. It is true, but nobody should be exposed to contaminants, especially since we still pay the highest rates in the United States for water. We shouldn't be paying. Maybe we pay extra for the contaminants. No, actually, what we do is we pay extra for the Genesee County bonds for the Carigandi Water Authority, the pipeline that we didn't want. Anyhow, so going on, it says some people may be more vulnerable to contaminants in drinking water than the general population. Immunocompromised persons, such as persons with cancer, undergoing chemotherapy, people who have undergone organ transplants, people with HIV/AIDS, and or other immune system disorders. Some elderly and infants are particularly at risk. Okay, so at this point, pretty much everybody's immune system got a big hit because of COVID. Asthma, since we have the Ajax asphalt plant now pumping contaminants into our air. As we well know, with Canada's wildfires, that created a lot of air problems, breathing problems, but also an immunocompromised. That's people with even high blood pressure, diabetes, any kind of suppressed immune system, which is a bulk of Flint because we were exposed to a lot of contaminants, which do a number on your immune system. So we're looking at pretty much most of us, but that's fine. Pregnant women are excluded in here, but that's basically anything that is your immunocompromised folks, elderly, infants. These people should seek advice about water from their healthcare providers. This is what was sent out to us in 2015, in January of 2015, when they sent out the total trihalomethanes, the first of many Safe Drinking Water Act violations we had, which was the disinfection byproducts, which are cancer-causing chemicals that you can inhale, drink, absorb, all the great stuff. It said the same thing. So in 2015, I asked my doctor, who is amazing, I asked him, hey, So I got this letter that said that I'm probably fine, except I should speak with my healthcare provider before consuming the water. And my doctor said, I don't know what this is. I'm a physician. I'm not a chemist. I am not a water quality expert. What? But if you have a label like this that says you should probably consult your physician before drinking your tap water, that's a problem. So here we are with this same thing. So once again, not a lot's changed, but I think this is their way of saying, hey, if you get sick from it, oh well, we told you to talk to your doctor, who is not going to have the answers, except for, hey, don't drink contaminants. Like that's pretty much the basic idea. Don't be drinking heavy metals. Don't be drinking disinfection carcinogen. Don't drink. Yeah, don't subject yourselves to poison. Okay, that seems pretty common sense, right? I got the sarcasm on high today, but I mean it. Like that's the thing. So it says the US EPA/CDC guidelines on appropriate means to lessen the risk of infection by cryptosporidium or other microbiological contaminants are available from the Safe Drinking Water Hotline, which is 810-426-4791. Okay, so why is there a bacteria little line snuck in there? That is a concern. Hot weather. Hot weather helps breed bacteria. Bacteria like Legionella, which causes Legionnaires, which is a bacterial form of pneumonia and can be very deadly. It feeds on corrosion, copper corrosion, iron corrosion. Bacteria feed on iron corrosion. You have corrosive water. It's a problem. So, yeah, it's interesting that they slipped that in there. But also, if you look at what's happening around the state, over 4th of July weekend, there were 18 public beaches that were closed due to bacteria. Okay, so that's great. That's going on. So there's these flags that you can look at to look for public beach, for looking for bacteria, basically, microorganisms, things that are, human pathogens, a danger to people to swim in. Why don't we have something like that for drinking water? Since, I spend more time drinking and showering in my water rather than swimming in the beach because I have no social life. So yeah, and then also that doesn't make me feel confident, right? So our source waters, surface waters, lakes, streams, rivers, all that. There's 18 public beaches, and there's hundreds of private beaches, and there's hundreds, and also these are the ones that are getting tested. There's always that. You'll hear the mayor of Flint say, Flint is the most monitored water system and the most tested water system in the country. One, we forced it because of our lawsuit. And two, that doesn't make it safe. I mean, if they're on my way here, there was a semi truck that blew a tire on the highway. And I can sit there and stare at it all day long and say, yo, this is the most monitored blown tire I've ever seen right now on this highway at this moment. That does not fix the tire or the fact that semi is stranded on the side of the road and can't get to where he needs to go. Okay, so just because something's the most monitored doesn't mean anything. And I'll tell you also why. So that right there, that general information section was pretty horrific. I had to watch my mouth in court because I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So then you hear things like radioactive contaminants, and you can talk about microbial. So it gives some some concerns. It says, oh, by the way, there's also the different sources. There's different things here. So you can read through this. But what I also want to point out is that we have multiple water sources right now. I mean, well, it all comes from Lake Huron, but we have GLIWA, which is the Detroit water, which is treated at the source and piped clean to us. Unfortunately, it's going through our corroded infrastructure, so it's not getting clean to the tap. But we're also, even though many of us fought against this more privatized pipeline, paying for a secondary water source that, in my opinion, we do not need and has caused more problems and caused our lead levels and other issues to go up. If you look at the chart, it's gone up since we've started this experimental blending, which isn't regulated by the EPA because, it's blending. It's not a full water switch. It's blending. So it's not great. But that's also another issue. So our lead levels have gone up, and as you flip through this little chart, I just want to kind of skip ahead because this is not reading time with Melissa Mays, although it could be. We could read a book, and I can give my opinion on all kind of things. There's a lot of unregulated contaminants, a lot of things, but we're looking at Genesee County Drain Commission, which is KWA, the privatized pipeline, and we're looking at Great Lakes Water Authority, which is Detroit, and then we're looking at the City of Flint distribution system. Now, I'm going to skip ahead to the lead section. Again, we talk about lead a lot because it's one of the few contaminants that are regulated by a law. So that we would have any kind of recourse to do anything under the law to get things to move, like the pipe replacement. So lead and copper are that. There are a few disinfection byproducts that are regulated, while there's hundreds that are yet to be regulated because the EPA is sorely underfunded and way behind on all this. And my normal complaint is that when you make a public health issue like clean drinking water a political one, it completely stops all progress. And it removes it from being a human issue to a money issue and a finger pointing issue and a blame game. And that's why we're still stuck here. Drinking water, clean, safe, affordable drinking water is not a political issue. It should not be a political issue because everybody, no matter what your party or who you voted for, drinks water. Okay? It uses water, bathes in water, flushes a toilet. I hope you do. Washes your hand, which I hope you do. And you use water. So it's not a political thing. If you're red, blue, orange, green, whatever, doesn't matter. Y'all use water. So nobody votes to be poisoned as far as I've known. So, hey, that's fine. So it should not be a political issue. That's another one of I am trying to stay on track today, Mickey. Sorry. I'm trying, but as I'm reading this little book here. So if you look at the City of Flint distribution system on this page here, as you open this booklet, you'll see it says that it'll list what they tested for, so copper and lead, and it'll break it up in dates, January 1st to June 30th, and it'll tell you what the maximum contaminant level is for safety, which lead is 0, and copper is 1.3 parts per million. They like to switch it up. It's 1,300 parts per billion is what the normal testing will show. And then the action level for lead and copper, lead is 15 parts per billion, and copper is 1,300. Now, action level does not mean safe. What that means is that the City of Flint took their samples, tossed out the highest 10 samples, which isn't, to me, is just mind-boggling because that's a bad sign, and then took the average of the remaining 90%. And if it's over 15, which right now I think we're at 9, but if it's over 15, that means that there's a corrosion problem and the city has to do something, like start changing service lines and dealing with a corrosion problem. Now, our 90th percentile went from 3 parts per billion during the height of the service line replacement in the previous administration, when under former Mayor Karen Weaver, between 2017 and 2019, we had done 27,000 and some digs for the service lines, and we've done like another maybe 1,200 or something like that under the current mayor in the since the end of 2019. That's a whole different issue. Obviously, the progress hit the brakes, and the whatever is beyond stopping, like going in reverse, that's where we've been since 2020. And that's why we're still fighting. And that's why these things are important. So over time, the 90th percentile was at 26 parts per billion. And that's the thing, is we are also, by the way, talking about city and state testing, which, let's just remind everybody that the city and state, we busted them in 2015 for cheating on the water tests. So with a grain of salt, we take this. And again, 15 parts per billion means that the city has to do something. It triggers a violation under the Safe Drinking Water Act, and they have to do something, right? That does not mean safe. That means there's a whole bunch of problems. And again, people were like, oh, these other cities have higher lead than Flint. First of all, no, because we had people with over 22,000 parts per billion. 5,000 is hazardous waste of lead. And also we had the city and state cheating on testing and not reporting it right, which is why we had to petition the EPA and why we had to sue. One of the many reasons we had to sue to, get oversight and a change in the testing. They were pre-flushing, running the water before they took the test, basically getting rid of the evidence. And then they were lying about what they were testing for, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole bunch of fun stuff. So they lied, but okay. So now, in this one, it says the 90th percentile of lead is 10 parts per billion. But if you look at range of all results, for copper, it was 0 to 2,100 parts per billion, or 2.1 parts per million. We have higher than that right now. If you look at the current, you can go to the state of Michigan and look at the Flint water test results. There's not many because people are not getting their water tested, and we need people to get their water tested. It's higher. There's people in the 3,000s for copper, which copper is an important nutrient, but not in excess. Like everything else, not in excess. And copper is stored in your brain. And for women, our reproductive organs, why not? When I started having seizures, my neurologist said he was very concerned about our lead, but also the copper, the high copper. So you have to be careful with that. But the lead, as everybody's saying, is fine. If you look at the range of results, it says 0 to 795 parts per billion. Yep. That means we had people turning in tests as high as 795 parts per billion. That's pretty horrific. And for people to say everything's fine, those people aren't fine. Those people are not okay. 795.
I got a question for you.
What's the question? Shoot it.
Coming from me. Now, with all that you just said, the state seeing the city getting sued with ain't it $500 a day until the pipes are done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With all this going on, the state, I get it. I remember what you said last week. They got the $100 million. They don't care if they get off with it cheap. But at the same time, they're playing. Cancers are still going. More people are dying. Pipes still not fixed. But you're getting downtown bricks did.
Mm-hmm.
State rep. And I'm not trying to throw no shade or nothing. I'm just being honest. Pipes not dead. You can see they try. I guess I ain't gonna mess with that. But pipes not being dead. They want to keep throwing parties. To me, it's like Nero playing the violin while Rome is burning.
That's exactly what's happening. The Flint Forward hashtag has always been offensive to me because it's like, hey, and it even says that in this quality report, they use, now moving forward, here's the problem. If Rome is on fire, which Flint is currently on fire, how are you going to move forward through the flames? Mm-hmm. To me, I said, okay, basically, it's like a truck, and they want the truck to move forward, driving over the people that are still suffering and dying. There is no such thing as moving Flint forward, where we are. Them having these parties and celebrations, they're celebrating that our 90th percentile is 10 or 9 parts per billion. That's not okay. That is not okay. That is absolutely not okay, especially if you look at their own documents, which they hope nobody will read, and somebody, I'm holding this like you can see it. Somebody's home tested. Somebody's property tested at 795 parts per billion. Still.
That was the reason I asked that, because remember, I went to his community thing he did at
yes.
the mosque. He was bragging with him, let me say it, Mayor Neely was bragging Flint, because a lady asked him that her water was not good. He said Flint, the most tested water in the United States. But he didn't answer the question.
Right.
And what you just showing that, or you reading that better yet.
Yeah, 795 parts per billion safe.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like the state don't care. Gretchen Whitmer, let me say, when I say the state, Republicans nor Democrats, even though this is a democratically controlled city, you got a Democratic governor, Democratic mayor, and Democratic state rep, but yet the city
Here we said.
And that's what I'm saying, but you having a party on this block. I don't know how the people can be partying when your water is not good.
That's what I don't understand. And that's what they're doing. They're like, hey, look at this shiny thing over here. Let's celebrate. Celebrate what? That you're not finished? That you think the people that you're partying with are less than you? And that it's okay to leave them with bad water? It's okay to leave the lead in the ground. It's okay to leave the bacteria in there. It's okay to send people something that says, hey, we're going to party about your water, but you really should check with your doctor first. What? How is any of this safe? And that's the thing. Flint is not safe. It's not. And everybody wants to talk about crime, this and that and whatever. Okay, well, you poison a whole bunch of folks and then you don't give them any kind of treatment. You're not giving them enough support. You're cutting services like mental health supports and jobs and transportation and all of the things that people need to recover. And you're not listening to what the people are telling you they need to recover. You're giving us new bricks. That's not going to help my water. Also, when you're tearing up these bricks, are you replacing the service lines that are going to the businesses downtown? What's happening to the coffee? What's happening to the food, the soup? What are they cooking with?
What are they cleaning the food with?
Exactly. So the type of person, I always have to say in my opinion, the type of person that says the Flint water is safe, Flint water is fixed, is a liar.
Oh, what that sums up our mayor.
Yeah. And honestly, our state rep's not doing anything. We have nobody to go to, so we have to go higher. And so with this, yeah, the 795, yes, absolutely infuriating and disgusting. And, and they send it out because they have to. Great. So read these. And if you want to have a session about how to understand your water quality report, the consumer confidence report, we can have a session on that. And we can talk about what's in it and what's not in it. But I do not believe that any agency feels that our water is safe when it's telling you to see your doctor first before using it. That's a pretty big warning label on that right there. But they expect people to toss these away and not read them because it is boring and it's not great, but it is critical.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, where everything you saying is like, I get it that the city is divided. You got people who like him. You got people who like the other side. I'm just gonna be honest. Well, you got people who like Weaver. You got people who like Neely. Let's just be honest. Just to sum it up.
Right.
But I can get if this is your person. Like this who you with, you riding with. But if you seeing the way the city is going, when do morals become over profit?
And if you so friends of mine from other countries cannot understand how we idolize politicians,
right,
like they're superstars.
Right.
And yeah, I see that if you know this person personally. When I first started going door to door in 2015 to get water tests, I went to Miller Road Mansions as well because I figured, okay, well, if the rich people realize that their water is just as bad as the rest of us. And also, we were trying to get tests from every part of town, every ward, every side, to prove that it was a widespread problem because we're all connected by the same 660 miles of crumbling, unstable infrastructure that's been neglected. Unless you're Miller Road Mansions, you got some new mains, and then that small section on DuPont, because that's been in the works for I don't know what, almost a decade or whatever it is. But we're all connected, and if you happen to like Mayor Neely, good, great. If you're friends, great. But that doesn't mean he's doing right by you. Right. So again, knocking on the doors, Miller Road Mansion, they had security escort me out, pick me up in the car and drop me off, saying, we don't want that here. We don't want to hear your mess. I had people tell me, I'm friends with Dane Walling, who was mayor at the time. He would tell me if there was a problem. Or I'm friends with Rick Snyder. He would tell me if there was a problem. Look, there is a big problem when your friend becomes a politician and then throws your best interests in the trash for profit to make Wall Street happy, to make donors happy. And you have to step back and look at your friend, the person that you like, you see at church, that you see in the community, and be like, hey, why isn't this getting done? You're my friend. What? So, as a friend, why aren't you asking them what's going on? Because if you recall, like when Mayor Weaver was in office, her thing was, I'm going toe-to-toe with the state. I'm going toe-to-toe with the county. I'm going toe-to-toe with the federal government to declare this emergency, this state of emergency. That's what got the ball rolling on all kind of supports, right? All kind of resources coming in. In East Palestine, for example, they're still fighting because their mayor took the money and ran. Wow. That's how they're looking. And their governor is playing around with this disaster declaration, which they don't qualify for. We didn't qualify for anything that's man-made, won't qualify for a federal disaster. So we had to talk about that. They needed an emergency. So he's doing this whole PR stunt saying, I'm doing so much for East Palestine, but he's asking for a federal disaster declaration he knows they don't qualify for. And then he's also saying there's no unmet needs, but he's allowing Norfolk Southern, the rail company, to be in charge of the recovery. It is exactly like what's happening here in Flint. When you let the guilty parties like the city and state and federal government and Veolia and land, and yes, I heard that there was a settlement with land. In my personal opinion, going through the years since, we filed in 2016, I'm also, Mays and the Mays v. Snyder to kick off the civil cases for the class actions and the personal damages, the money lawsuit, basically. Veolia and Land were sticking together like this, saying, hey, nah, we're not responsible. Well, something must have happened, or Land, who's much smaller, realized Veolia, this huge multi-billion-dollar international corporation, doesn't care about you or anybody else. So I don't know what's going on with that. There's no information. In case people did have questions about that, it did pop up at the Detroit News, Free Press put that out. It's premature because it's still sealed. So I was bugging the attorneys. They nobody knows anything yet. So that's to come, right? So there's things in the works there. We are still suing the federal government / EPA, Department of Justice, and we are still suing Veolia. So they should probably get smart and settle. But here we are, the engineering firm that was hired to tell us how the water was just fine. So
that's what I'm saying. Look what you just said. How you gonna let the people who caused it, i.e. the state, because it was Snyder's fault, but Gretchen's in.
Yeah.
She could have did right.
Yeah, she could have.
You letting them handle it.
Right.
And you think they're going to do right when they know they did wrong.
And that's something that I'm seeing a lot in these other communities. They're like, well, when they realize how much we're being harmed, they'll feel bad and fix it. And I'm like, okay, look, we thought that in 2015, 2014 as well. We thought that if the world and if the government knew we were being poisoned, as if they didn't know, that we would get fixed.
But this is what I get tired of when I hear, because I was hearing this during election time, the governor, she was Flint fatigued.
So actually, our congressman, so Dan Kildee told us that he's been pushing because he put forth the in beginning of 2015, he put forth the Families of Flint Act, right, asking for $260 million in recovery funds for Flint. And this was, I believe, late February, early March of 2015, like whenever 2016, sorry, when everything finally busted out internationally. So then he was pushing. They had the sit-in, rest in power John Lewis, but we had people caring and doing that, thinking that the right things would happen.
We can go through history,
right?
We can go through history, and we're gonna prove government is corrupted.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like the money that came in, it didn't go to help none of the people.
So that's another thing. So we did not get that to over $200 million that Dan Kildee had put in. They tried. It got blocked multiple times by a single senator, Mike Lee from Utah, who I like to go on social media and get on. But then during this time, Louisiana got $500 million for a disaster relief and everything. We couldn't even get $200 million because they said, well, federal government decided, well, it's a Democrat issue. Federal government shouldn't have to take care of it. Then the state said, you know what? It's a local issue, even though the federal government's there to make sure the state government's doing right. Then the state government took over the city of Flint and took away all of our democracy and made the choices to switch our water and not treat it. But the state's like, that's the city's problem. We don't want anything to do with it. And so then it became political.
But that's the point. To see how easy we could point, but it did become political, but both sides was playing in it. So it wasn't
both sides.
So it wasn't political. It was just greed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's when we gotta start. I feel like we gotta call it out because I'm seeing different people being on Facebook. They complain in Democrats and Republicans. When you do see Democratic majority ran cities are shit shows.
And that's the thing. The difference that I see between Democrats and Republicans is that the Republicans will tell you to your face, drink your poison. We don't care.
Right.
Move on, go die quiet in the corner somewhere, stop bothering us.
Right.
The Democrats will say, oh my God, my heart breaks for you. We're going to try to do everything we can. But at the end of the day, are in the same boat with the Republicans. The only thing that would separate them is actual actions. Words mean nothing. Words are not going to make my water safe. Actions are.
That's what I'm saying, because it goes like you just said, as far as the pipeline. You got big corporations that's tied into this. To me, it's like this is America when they say capitalistic country. This is what you're gonna get. It's greed. They know. Let me rephrase it. They know having a rent down city is how you gonna get the money.
Yep.
Because if the city is good, ain't no money gonna be coming in. You running efficient. But And I kind of understand what some do. Like, why are we gonna keep sending this money to Flint when it's not going? Because remember, the $800 million came in, didn't come to Mayor Weaver.
No,
it went to the state.
The state took that money. They also snagged a lot of our federal money, by the way. The money that the WIN Act, the $170 million that Obama had signed right before leaving office.
Right.
The state took $50 million off the top to pay for the Medicaid expansion for children. And then they took another $20 million to pay back the state revolving loan fund that they had put that Flint had taken out and couldn't afford to, but did years before to upgrade our water treatment plant. And even though it needed far more than that to ever treat water, and we see all this coming out with all the investigations and lawsuits. But here's the thing: the money went to the people responsible for taking away our democracy and poisoning us. The money went to the same people that stopped revenue sharing, which helps post-industrial cities. It's a pot of tax dollars in the state that go to help cities that are struggling after they allowed GM and all these industries to bail and leave us in shambles. So Governor Snyder, one of the first things he did was get rid of revenue sharing, which cut money off from Saginaw, Detroit, and Flint, and other post-industrial cities to be able to stay afloat and recover. So they cut that money off, and then they're like, oh no, Flint's having a financial crisis. I wonder why. We got to go in there and take control. Well, they caused the financial crisis. They allowed it from decades, and it's not just Snyder. It's decades of disinvestment in post-industrial, majority minority, poor cities. Right. They don't invest in us because we're disposable people to them, and we don't matter. So that's why we got to be loud and show them we matter and do everything to put a stick in their spokes to stop the wheel from turning that is running over us all. Okay. So down to our mayor, our city council, our state rep, this entire mess was set up in place. And that's the thing. These folks are not doing anything to help us. So they got all this time to plan on how to shut us up, distract us with parties, distract us with bricks, distract us with things saying, hey, here's some fancy numbers, which, by the way, are false. We're 97% done. No, we're not. No, we're not. That's not how math works.
And winter is on the way. And that's the point I'm going to make. Winter is on the way, so he's going to miss another deadline. But to me, it's like the state is allowing them, along with the judge, because the judge still got the final say so.
Right. So we're hoping that the judge, with the Safe Drinking Water Act case, that Judge Lawson has been pretty firm and not messing around.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying when you say firm and not messing around. To me, it's like, okay, you putting a fine. That's okay.
Right.
And he not caring because he looking at it, oh, I pay the $500 a day because he got, he might be paying that fine out of ARPA money. Who knows? Right. Allegedly. That's what I'm saying. And we can't get a definite answer. It's 30 to 50 million. No, that's not how bank account go. I can go right to my bank account and it's gonna tell me down to the last $3.73 that I got in there. That's not no with 30. See, when you playing the guessing game, me, I believe it's gone, personally. That's just me. My personal belief is gone. And when it do come time to show and prove, then you're gonna hear the state takeover. But to me, it's like they setting it up for this. The ones you see are in place because, state rep, like you say, you can't go to her and complain.
Right.
So
we need actual people, residents, people who live here, to run for office and put a stop to it. Now, it's going to be messy. It's going to be difficult because they don't want you there. If you take a step back, whether you liked Mayor Weaver or not, if you take a step back and look at how many recalls she faced in her 4 years, her short 4-year term, how much she actually had to fight to, and it was every time a recall would pop up, it was after she said no to something. Right. Like, we told her we did not want to go to the KWA. Scientists, doctors, everybody had said our already damaged, fragile, unstable infrastructure cannot handle another water switch. It cannot. We need to have everybody's infrastructure replaced, including water heaters, fixtures, taps, all these things. Everything needed to be replaced before it could handle a water switch. And it needed to be done properly because the switch to the Flint River, there was no testing done beforehand. And if there was, it's poof, gone. And so whether you like her or not, let me just say the state's PR game is strong. They went after her at first, when they told her in 2015 when she first got in office, don't declare that state of emergency. You're going to make the governor mad. She did it anyway. She did it with us standing next to her. With her, I mean, she and I were both on the news pushing, before she was even in office, pushing for a state of emergency, a public health emergency, because our water testing had proved that it was all over. And we started discovering the Legionnaires outbreaks that were covered up. So she's pushing for this, and we got threatened to be arrested on camera. I'm like, together. And we're like, we're just asking for, okay, fine. So they were threatening to arrest us. The thing is that, and on a personal note, when I first met her, we were doing the Detroit to Flint march. We had arrived, we marched for a week talking about water rights, emergency management, loss of democracy, and poison folk, So we stopped at cities along the way. I did not march the whole way. My physical body, no way, can't handle that. But they did it. And when we landed in Flint, we had a huge rally. And that's when Karen Weaver walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Karen Weaver. I'm Dr. Karen Weaver, and I'm running for office. I would like some information from you so I can know what is actually going on with this water." And I said, I don't talk to politicians. I said, politicians created this, and no. I started walking away, and I can be less than pleasant. I was just very firm because I was not interested. I was like, I'm not going to be used as a prop or anything like that. And Karen had said, "Well, I'm a doctor, not a politician, so when you want to talk," and that kind of won me over a bit. But then she sat with me for hours going over the water testing, what this does, what lead does, because most of us, because lead paint, lead gas have been gone for such a long time, we hadn't talked about this. And then let's talk about like the decline in crime, the decline in learning disabilities, and the decline in all these things once they took lead out of gas, which I was not drinking. You probably were not drinking gas. I also was not eating lead paint. I understand lead paint chips, especially in old homes, that's a big deal. That's why we still have the lead abatement program to get the lead paint out. But the biggest thing is all of us were drinking water. So we were watering our plants with it, growing vegetables with it, doing all these things. And that was the big issue. Feed it to animals. My cat died in my lap, had a seizure and died.
See what I'm saying?
I love my cat. I'm like still. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That from the water. That's what I'm saying. And like how you said, she was approachable to you.
Yeah.
She came to you.
I got told by this current mayor that I was an electronic terrorist because I was not posting nice things about him. And he asked, he was telling me to post nice things about the meetings he was not going to about the pipe replacement lawsuit. And I'm like, first of all, you should not be approaching me, it's because you are mayor and I am suing the city and the state and all these things. You should not approach me without my attorney. And then I reported this to my attorneys because I'm furious, because he told me to go on my social media and use my platforms to talk about how great everything's going with the pipes. I'm like, first of all, I had to take off work again to go to the meeting in your office, which you did not show up to talk about this. And then I get called an electronic terrorist because I won't say anything nice. Well, do something right and I'll say something nice maybe. But it won't be nice. It's going to be fact-based. And that's the thing. I have been sued for $3 million for saying the water is bad by a PhD. I've gone through all this stuff. You are not going to tell me what to say.
But the water, he wants you to go say that the pipes...
Everything is fine. Then why am I still taking off of work, losing money to sit here for hours watching these, I don't know, and we don't know and stuff. It is, and I can't hit anybody. And I can't scream and yell. But as frustrating as this is, I'm not going to stop.
Right.
The residents aren't going to stop. And what's great is that we had a door-to-door salesman come to our door. He had just moved to Flint, and I'm like, okay, I'm outside, so I'll talk to you. And he did say, he's like, so you guys' water's not fixed. Mind you, this person moved from New Zealand. And I'm like, oh, your company must hate you to put you here. But he said every door he's knocked on, the residents told him, don't drink the water. Get filters or bottled water. Don't drink the water. And he's coming from New Zealand. He's like, I don't understand. He was like, your political system. But, okay, so that's horrific. But it also makes me feel better because even though it's exhausting, it is 9 years. We are all over it. What did I say earlier? 3,361 days. Just whatever horrific thing I said. People are still looking out for one another, and people are still, that's the thing to me. People are still not drinking the water. And yes, it would be great to be normal and turn on that tap and that expensive as gold stuff coming out of it not hurting me. That's the dream. That's the goal for all of this, is so we can just go back to turning on our tap and not getting sick. How ridiculous is that of a goal and a dream? in America in 2023.
And just think, babies that were born in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, not going to understand drinking from, they're coming to realization is drinking bottled water.
Yep.
Can you imagine when they become adults? Even with me, even when we go out of town or something, I still drink bottled water.
I do as well. And well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, when I go out of town, it's usually to help poison water cities. So I know, but so I don't have, and people are like, oh, you get to travel all these great places. Every single one of them. I mean, I went to Gulfport, Mississippi, where there was flesh-eating bacteria in the water. I was like, ooh, it would be nice to go swim in the Gulf. They're like, don't do that. People are losing fingers and toes. I'm like, oh, okay. So talking about bad pipes and water, and that's fine. This is my life now, and it's okay. As long as I can help, that's great. But the thing is that, yeah, so my kids are, and I'm a mentor for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy. And these are all kids. And it was born out of the water crisis, talking about what their life has been like. These teens are talking about what their life has been like growing up through the Flint water crisis and, living this every day. And then that some of our kids have gone to, they're in colleges. And right now that's Spelman College and they're in Georgia. They still don't drink water down there. And they're like, no, they've learned. And they're like, no, and they don't know anything different. They don't, you're exactly right. They don't, they do not do that. And so it's terrible because I don't want anybody making money off of me being poisoned. So I want them to fix this right. And, we've heard this like, oh, Flint, you guys just want money and blah, 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 blah. You guys got $600 and some million. Nobody's got a penny of it yet. And no, first of all, that's not enough.
Right.
600 million, 100,000 people. There were 50,000 claims. I should actually look at the balance of what I owe on my Home Depot credit cards for having to replace the pipes, the water heaters, and everything in my house over this past since 2015. And how much I owe my soul to them. No, it's not enough. There's not enough money they can give me. And also you can't put a price tag on my brain or my bones, but I'll tell you what, the settlement's not enough. It's not good enough. It's never going to be good enough. But if I get my $12, and I make jokes about it all the time, I'm going to get that $12 from the state because they owe me. They owe me far more, but I want them to pay me because that is a way for them to say, we messed up. We did wrong because nobody wants to admit fault. It is beyond infuriating. I raised 3 kids and I taught them, if you break something, you buy it. If you harm somebody, you fix it. And I'm sorry means nothing if you continue the same behavior and you continue harming people. And so what we have to continue to do is talk, stand up with one another, and continue to put our faces on this crisis, because when they boil us down to numbers and political sides.
Well, you got one question.
Oh shoot!
Before we do it, it said, actually, did you hear about the lawsuit against Land? I guess he's saying.
Yeah.
Where he paid, where 4 parents got paid.
Who got paid? Oh, okay. So yeah. So basically, the Detroit Free Press, they put out something I got sent yesterday. About Land, so Lockheed, whatever they are, one of the engineering firms that said everything was fine. So they had been standing with Veolia, which is a huge international multi-billion-dollar corporation, and Veolia was kind of protecting Land. And so even though like Roe and McLaren and all that, they broke off and said, we're going to go ahead and settle and put money into this pot that the state's putting together, Land and Veolia is like, nah. We're gonna fight you in court. Well, Land doesn't have the assets, the money, and the attorneys that Veolia does. And also, there's reports, by the way, interesting reports we can talk about. Jury tampering's taken a new turn in my eyes. During Veolia's trial, there were ads popping up, and they were geo-targeted to where the jurors were in Ann Arbor, talking about how Veolia is innocent and how there was like 26 per page. Like when you would pop open Google, that's all you would see. So instead of trying to put a bug in the jurors' ears, anytime they opened their phones, it was just blasted with how Veolia tried to help Flint, which is not true. And Veolia did blah, 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 blah. So that's a new version in my eyes. So Detroit News put out a really good article when they did things. It was disgusting. It was targeted at the jurors to tell them, Veolia is innocent. And after the case got, it was a hung jury, after they got dismissed. And yes, they're still, going, basically they couldn't come to a decision because of one juror. And oh my goodness. Yeah, they have a lot of money and assets. So then for Land to say, oh, we're doing a 90-degree here, or 180, we're doing a 180, and now we're going to go ahead and settle and add money to this pot that the state's got. In my eyes, what did Veolia do? Like, did land smarten up and think that Veolia is not going to protect them because they got to protect themselves because they got billions upon billions of dollars and land does not? Maybe. But yeah, so we don't know anything. It's still sealed. There's no amount given, anything like that. So, and again, you spread that across the $12 we're getting. And again, get your money. Get your money. It's not enough. No, it's not enough. And say it's not enough, but you get your money. Do not let the state be able to go walk away and not give you something, because then what they've tried to do is get people to not file claims on this, so then they can say, oh, well, we didn't have enough people file, so and what they'll do is spin it. We tried to help Flint, but they weren't grateful. We offered them this pot of money. They weren't grateful, so they don't need it and they didn't want it, making us the bad guys. So that's what they were doing with the pods. They were trying to say, and that was one of the things we had to go back to court about, trying to say, well, people don't need bottled water. There's not enough people coming to go pick it up from the pods. So we had to get in there with clipboards and count. So again, remember, unfortunately, our tax dollars are paying for the PR firms that the state and city are using to turn this on, back on us. That, like the mayor said, well, the residents are declining service line replacements. And then we fought it and said, really? Because the people on the decline list, the declination list that we got, when we knocked on their doors, they said nobody had ever contacted them. Oopsie. You can't decline if nobody asks you if you want it. Then they said that they were making all of these excavation appointments every week, and people would make appointments and say, yes, I'll be there tomorrow at such and such time. And then people weren't showing up for the excavation appointments at their own home. Yeah, and we're like, okay, where's the proof on that then? Give us a list. So every time we do this, we question, show me the proof. That is the number one thing. Anytime anybody tells you the water is safe, this is that, where's the proof? And again, going back to the confidence report, nope. It's got a disclaimer on it telling you to see a doctor. And it says our lead range was 0 to 795 parts per billion. Holy crap. And yeah, no. And it boils down to, as long as this contaminated infrastructure, the service lines, the distribution mains that are crumbling in the street, the interior plumbing, as long as all of this corroded infrastructure, appliances and fixtures are in place, as long as they're touching your water as it comes to you, it's going to be contaminated. And then also, as long as this mayor is proud of blending our water and experimenting with it, which is making our lead levels go up as well, and it's unstable, it's not going to be okay. So everybody out there, don't buy the hype. Don't believe in the parties. Look at them bricks and be like, that could be a water heater. That could be a new tap filter or a new tap period for somebody. That could be going to mains. But okay, let's just make sure downtown isn't as bumpy. But you're going to go in and drink the water from one of the restaurants. You're going to have some coffee. You're going to have some tea. What's in it? You don't know. So be safe. Protect yourselves. Don't buy the PR hype. And don't go falling into, I like Weaver, I like Neely, this. You need to fight the people that are in charge currently and tell them, do your job. You can be buddies all day long, but at the end of the day, they're still your elected official and you are still their boss, whether you're friends or not. And also, if you're your friends, tell your friend they're messing up and they're hurting people. Right. So that's what you do. You be a good friend, but also don't expect that they're going to treat you right and tell you the truth just because you're friends. Get the truth, get the paperwork. And again, let's throw out again for the consent, give consent to get them to dig up your service line, to check it out, and then to replace it. And also use the same information to let them know that if your restoration of your yards, any of your property, your yard, your street, your sidewalk, your driveway, your home, if it is not restored, which is a required part of the lawsuit, you call 810-410-1133. You email get the lead out at cityofflint.com and copy that email to flintpipereplacement@gmail.com. That goes to the attorneys so they can keep track and know. And don't forget, get your water tested. Not enough people are getting their water tested. We can talk about the proper way to test and go over that to make sure that you're not doing any of the things, or they're not skipping some information that you need to know about leaving your water stagnant, how to fill your bottles, all that great stuff. How to document everything. But you need to call the Flint Public Health Navigators to get filters, cartridge replacements, water test kits. And that number is 810-410-2020. And there we go. So that's some information for today. We'll have more to talk about, but if you got questions, let us know. If there's information you need in the meantime, But everything goes well. I'll be back next Saturday with some more information and some sass for y'all at 11 o'clock right here with Mickey. Thank you. Everybody, thank you for joining me on your Saturday. Please share this out if you found the information helpful. Again, I'm Melissa Mays, founder of What Are You Fighting For? Operations manager at Flint Rising and Flint resident, and a headache for people who are doing wrong. So
for sure. Peace. I said we should be advocating for a new